how you doing? Got my coffee, NYC coffee cup. And it's kind of hot. So today I'm gonna paint a picture. It's spring break time in Florida. And so a lot of young people are at the beach. And so I painted this. I'm not sure I'm happy with it. To me, the composition should be better. I could have maybe put her higher into the painting, and maybe she should be more in the shade. As I think I made her a little bit too lit, but a young girl at the beach, spring break. I don't know what else to tell you. I wish I could tell you I was really happy with this one, but I'm not. But I did make some mistakes along the way that I fixed, so it could have been worse. And so that's an important part of this particular video, is you'll see the way I fixed the mistakes, even though, like, I feel like I could do more, but I would ruin it. You know what I mean? I would make it worse instead of better. So, all right, enough of that. Let me show you. Let me show you how I did it, for what it's worth. Okay. Well, let's get started with this one. So you see I have it set up as the portrait setting, or the portrait portrait, I don't know what you call it, but anyway, there it is. It's that way, not this way. It's this way, vertical. Okay, so this is basically just a picture of a young girl, and so I'm just going to real quickly give myself some idea of what part of the paper is going to be the girl. So I'm just real quickly sketching in. You might have heard me say that I've done a lot of sketches for people early on in my younger days, when I would sketch at hotel lobbies and the resorts near the attractions here in Florida, like Disney and Universal. So this is kind of how I would start that. What I would do a lot with them is I would start with the eyes, and the reason I'm doing it this way now is because I'm planning on painting this, and this is not going to be just a sketch. Plus, when somebody would sit with me for a sketch, the amount of time that I had was so limited, and it was limited by myself. I didn't have any like boss telling me, you got to do it in this much time. It was me, and the reason it was me is because people going to those theme parks pay a lot of money to be in those theme parks, and I definitely didn't want to take a lot of their time, because they were there to ride the rides. They weren't there to get their face sketched. I mean, they were at that moment, but you know, a lot of what they were there to do was to ride the ride. So I didn't want to take up their time. So I would limit myself to 15 minutes. Sometimes it would be more. Sometimes, well, very, very rarely would it be less. But okay, I'm just trying to see if I can get this the way I want it now. I feel like I went way too big on her, the size of her face. And this is why I have an eraser. And this is also why we sketch. Trying to do a portrait without a sketch is not a good idea. You have to have some kind of sketch, unless you're not trying to capture a likeness. And to be honest with you, I'm not really trying to capture a likeness on this one. I'm just trying to do a face. We're trying to get the face of a young girl out at the beach here in Florida. It's kind of a close-up from a pixelated picture that I took. She happened to be in the picture. I didn't really take it of her, but she was in the picture, so now I'm going to try to bring her forward. What I like about the picture is the lighting. She has like very shiny skin. She probably had sunscreen on or something, and the sun was hitting her in such a way that there was just reflections everywhere. So gotta be real careful here. The lips are so, you can make mistake with the lips so easily. And the other problem is I'm using a pencil, and some of this area is the light area, so I'm going to have to erase some of that. I'll get it right eventually. I'll get it right. Takes me a while sometimes. Also, we have a tendency when we do paintings of people, we have a tendency to exaggerate the size of the eyes. I think that's because eyes are so important, and we see eyes as a way that we communicate with each other. We talk to people and we look them in the eye, and we listen to people and we look them in the eye. So trying to make sure I got the dimensions right. I haven't really yet. I'm still fine-tuning it. Yeah, I can see a lot of areas here that I need to fix. Well, like yesterday when I was doing the bird, I found myself definitely needing to revise the sketch a few times. And it's kind of the same thing here. The biggest reason for getting rid of some of these sketch lines on her lips is because the lips are what's reflecting a lot of the light, and that pencil is just going to get in the way. So yeah, I go to the beach with Robin and her mom. Her mom is now 91 years old. We had a party for her on her 90th birthday. And it was about that time, just before that time, which was January of 2023. So, no, you know what? It might have been after the party. But we went to Ormond Beach, which, if you're familiar with Florida, it's right next to Daytona Beach. And that's where we went. It's where we always go. Because there were no cars on that stretch of the beach. As you know, Daytona is a beach you can drive on. And so we kind of like to go someplace where there's no cars. We park in a parking lot there. It's like a city-owned parking lot. So the city lets you park for free. But you got to be there early, because a lot of people like to be there, of course. It's just a beautiful, beautiful stretch of beach. And I do like going there. And one of the things about being at the beach, as from an artist's point of view, is that there's so many things you think would make a good painting, and the ocean itself just seems to be made to be a painting. Like God said, I'm gonna create an ocean so the artists have something to paint. And it just you know what it is it's so soothing to be there. And if you can't be there, the next best thing is to have a photograph of that spot or a painting. And sometimes paintings, I think, in my opinion, sometimes paintings actually serve the, what do you call it when you're someplace? Is it called vicariously? If you're someplace but you're not really there, you're there through the TV or through somebody's story. So you're there vicariously, that's the word, right? So you're there vicariously, and I think sometimes the images that are most effective to be at a beach or at a landscape, a mountain place, a mountainous place, I don't know, a meadow. Sometimes the best images to be someplace vicariously are artwork, as opposed to photographs. Photographs absolutely are wonderful, and most artwork is, at least nowadays, most people use photographs as reference when they're doing artwork. I do a lot. I was visiting somebody in a hospital one time, and I went out into the hallway, and on the wall in the hallway was a really beautiful landscape, and I went up close to it to look at it, and it was it looked like it was done in pastel, and I love working in pastel. I should show you some pastel work one day. I'm so stuck on these watercolors though. But anyway, so I was looking at the pastel painting. Make sure I got this girl right. Her shoulder comes. I think her shoulder goes over here a little bit more. Her shoulder's a little bit higher than that. So anyway, it was a pastel painting of a landscape. And when you looked at it closely, you could tell it was very impressionistic. Nothing was actually drawn or painted, but from a distance, and you didn't have to be far. I mean, you could be 4 feet away. It didn't have to be real close, real far. But the beauty of it was that the painting was soothing to look at. And it was in a hospital, you see. And that's my point, is that whoever was like a decorator, whoever decided to do that, knew the effect it would have on the people in the hospital, that they would be soothed just by seeing that painting. And maybe it's like a subconscious thing, because if you're visiting somebody at the hospital, it could be very, very stressful, and so having something that'll soothe you or calm you or make you add a little bit more peace. It's a good thing to have. God, I'm so focused on getting everything right on this painting here. Now I gotta make sure I get the landscape in the background also. I believe that would be her arm. That shoulder might be a little bit too big. So I don't know. I don't know if a painting of a person would be as soothing as a landscape, but in this case, we're going to try to get both the person and the landscape in there. I think I made her head a little bit too big. Try to use the rule of thumb. That looks right. Her eyes are like right in the middle. You can do that once in a while just to check. The real check, though, is to consider the subject that you're working from. And we'll see. We'll see how this works out in watercolor. I guess you already know, because I always use these, the end result first. I always show at the beginning of the video. That's the one thing about watching the video. You know before I do how this is going to work out. But you know what? You shouldn't shy away from things that are a challenge when you're doing art. Do not shy away from a challenge. Painting people is a challenge. But putting people into a composition is a challenge. And what I mean by that is, it's not just about getting the person, but it's about creating a nice composition from the subject. In this case, it's this young girl, and she's at the beach, so it's pretty easy to see. Okay, she had a top on that was kind of hard to see in the picture. I'm just trying to imagine how this all worked out there. But there we go. All right, now behind her, we're going to put the ocean and the sky. And it was Daytona. There are no islands out there. Well, it was Ormond, actually. So there are no islands out there. There's the horizon. And there's probably the water, I guess. I'm going to keep that part loose, I think. Now, I do think I may have made her arm a little bit too big there. Gave her too many muscles. Do you think her head is too big? Maybe. Maybe her head is too big. But you know what? I'm not going to worry about it. Maybe this shoulder comes out a little bit more. Or maybe it starts curving up a little bit sooner. Yeah, that helps a little bit. And then come around here and bring it in. So let me get rid of some of these inner lines. That's a little bit too much, I think. See what I mean? It's just a very subtle thing. You really... Yeah, that might be good. Now the thing about that is there's a lot of light hitting her from this direction. So I want to make sure I get that in there too. Alright, let's get started with her now, with the paint. So again, I'm using, I could put these away. I'm using Winsor & Newton pan watercolors, these right here. Oops, whoa, look at that, came out. I had some gouache stuck in there. Whoops. I don't use white very often with the watercolors. Oh, I put it upside down, didn't I? There it goes. Okay. Am I nervous about doing this? Yes, I am. I'm a little bit concerned I won't be able to get it right. But here we go. Here we go. And the thing to remember is to keep it lit there. You know what I'm going to do, I think? I'm going to lighten some of these areas over here. I'll just have to remember where they are. And she's got some light happening there. She's got some light happening here. Every place where there's going to be light, I'm just going to erase some of the pencil marks so they don't get in the way. Okay. All right, now let's just do the basics. Let's just get some of the basics in here. I'm going to use the back of the card as my palette. Try to get the right color for her skin tone. Just going to keep working that orange. It's a kind of a nice orange. Now I'm going to use that white. I'm going to lighten the orange. Kind of make it a pinkish. That looks good. And I'm going to keep it very watered down. Very watered down. Try to remember where her reflective spots are on her face. Keep it all very light. Just use the palette on the other side of the card. Yeah, if this was a card that I was actually giving to somebody, and it was supposed to be a person that person knew, or the person themselves, I would be definitely worried about getting this right. As it is, since I'm just doing a demonstration, I'm not so concerned about it, but I would be very worried about doing that. Just keeping it light. Very watercolor light. In some cases, the pencil marks might work for me. In other cases, they're going to work against me, so I got to be careful. If this whole side of her nose is lit, so I just want to work around that. Keep getting this over here. This side of her chin is lit. This side of her cheek is lit over here. Yep, that whole side of her nose is lit. The bottom of her nose is in the shadow. This part of her upper lip is in the shadow. Just like with the bird yesterday, the white paper shined through and created this really cool effect of sunlight hitting the bird. And I want that same look here with this girl. I want the sunlight hitting the girl. And the thing about doing portraits and human figures and things is you have to very carefully make a subtle difference between what's dark and what's light. Now I want to show you something. So this is the darker orange, but she doesn't really have orange skin. So how do you make it darker, like for the shadows? Well, there's a couple of ways. What I'm going to try to use is some green. And see how the green kind of made it look like brown right there? There's the shadow I see under her chin. So I'm going to put that there. Very subtle. And also the line for her. A little bit of a nostril there. And I can go ahead and put a little bit of a line. A couple of lines for her eyes. Just tiny, tiny, tiny bits. Keeping it very tiny. The darker areas here. She's got some darker areas here, the shadows under her arms. Over here. Just a little hint of one here. A little space between her lips. There we go. All right, let me get back to this. Put some more white in there. Get it light. I can always darken it later. Here we go. It's a little bit dark here. Get this all darkened in here. See the subtle difference between the shadow under her chin and her chin. And it actually looks like this part of her chin is darker than the underside, so the shadow doesn't go the whole way. So I get that light there. And once the paint dries, you know, it creates that watercolor stain look, which is okay sometimes. And other times I don't like it. So I'll just take the brush, a little bit of a wet brush, and smooth it out. Getting these colors to kind of blend here. It gets a little bit lit here. Let's get some more white over here. Kind of blending it together. Get some more white over here. Just lighten it up a lot. That's where the light is hitting her face, right there. Yeah, this is a delicate operation when you're doing a face and a body. You're really trying to get the shadows in the right place, and the cool and the warm also. That's another part of a painting to remember, is that there are some warm and cool areas. I haven't really worked with any cool colors yet on her, but I will, I hope. I think about doing that. So her top is actually, her bathing suit is actually white. I'm trying to decide if I wanted to keep it white or not. We'll see. We'll see if white works. Just keep working this a little bit at a time. Get this shadow that comes down here. There we go. Spread this around. That shadow there. So it's a very subtle shift of light from dark to light. I think by the time I get to the ocean and the foreground, it's going to be, well, hopefully everything on her is dry by then. I gotta wait to do the eyes before the rest of the face is dry. Right here, make sure you get the shadows right on her chest. It's an important part of painting a woman, is to make sure you get the chest looking just right, because gosh, I see so many paintings of women, you probably done by men, and they just exaggerate the chest. Unbelievable. They just overdo it. They don't really study it, or either that or it's like a fantasy thing, I guess. But that's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm just trying to get an actual looking. I know the hair is important. I want to make sure I get the hair right. But the thing about this particular girl is that she's in the sun. She's got a little bit of a shadow here from her collarbone. That looks good. Make sure I get the ear, some of the little folds of the ear. Do you remember a song from the musical Hair? I think it was from that. And the words were, "What a piece of work is man." I'm sure they're talking about, well, I don't really know, but I think they're talking about in the song the personalities of people. You know, what a piece of work we are. You know, we're so contrary, and there's so many different emotions work into human beings. But if you think about that song as a comment on the physical creation of human beings, the physical beings we are, I mean, what a piece of work we are. All creatures, really, not just us. I mean, you look at all the animals in the sea, and just creation itself is just incredible. I always say, I am not a great artist. I'm just trying to recreate what the master created, meaning God. God is the great artist. I'm just a re-artist. I'm just re-arting. Everything else is a reference. I certainly didn't create anything in my lifetime other than art. But then again, did I really create it, or did it, is it just influenced by what's around me? See that one line right there? I penciled that in because she has a little hair stripping down across her face. I'll take care of that. All right, a little bit more darkness here, I think. I'm actually going to take liberties because I can't really tell. Like I say, it's a very pixelated reference photo. You see how very little paint I'm actually using here. I mean, pretty much everything I'm getting off of that little swatch I put over there. And it's got all different tones over there I can pick from, and I can darken it a little bit just by going over it, putting a second layer. Just trying to get the lights and the darks to look correct. Let me try to get her eyes looking the right way. I'm trying to decide. I'm going to try to give her blue eyes. I don't know if that's a crazy thing to try to do when they're so tiny, but I'm going to give it a shot. And what do you think? Okay, now let's give her some red lips. Let's see if this is a good red. It's okay, not bad. Again, her lips have a lot of light reflecting off of them too, so. I think I'll use some of that red and give her a little bit more depth to the color around her eyes and her cheek over here. Maybe in her shadow. See, so that red is, I'm using that red. Let me get that red over here so I can use it. Kind of looks nice using it as a little bit of a shadow there. Let that water do what it does. Right now, I'm going to take some of this dark. I'm going to make a very risky decision here. Take some of this very dark paint. Try to create a tiny bit of a pupil in her eye. Oh my gosh, that's so tiny. A little bit of this line right here. The eyelashes. And her eyebrows. Okay, now let me try and get the color of her hair. See what I can do there. Not sure what color to use for her hair. Her hair is definitely darker than her skin, so. This area over here is hair. I'll add some of these later on after the ocean is in there. A little piece of hair hanging down there across her face. Yes, her hair is a lot darker than her skin, so try to make sure I get that. Although, you know, close to the outer part of her hair. There's that one little strand. Try and get this. I want to make the hair have the look of hair. I want it to be reflecting light and having shadows. And it's got some, like a little bit of a. I'll just pencil that. I'll just sketch it in with the watercolor, and then I'll come back to darken the areas. I think that's probably the best approach. Instead of doing dark first, I'll do light first. Although I did want to see how that was going to work. Getting a little bit of shadow to her lips. Let me get some very watered down for some of this light response. Okay, now when it dries, I'm going to add a little bit more darkness, and then the highlights will appear to be highlights. I do think maybe I should make the bathing suit a color other than white. I think it's a little bit less dramatic than it could be from a composition point of view. Okay, a little bit more darkness under her nose. Okay, make sure everything is dry. Probably gonna let the pencil marks work for me, I think. Alright, let's take her bathing suit and make it a color. What color do you think would be good for her bathing suit? Just noticing a little bit more shadow here, that might work. Well, I was talking about doing warm and cool. How about we do a cool color for her bathing suit? We sort of gave her blue eyes, sort of. So why don't we make the bathing suit kind of reflect that? Maybe that'll work well with the beach also. I really can't tell. In the picture, it looks like she's wearing a white bathing suit, but it's so far away. And she was not looking at the camera, by the way. That's a decision I made in painting it. Just thought it'd be a better composition. You know what? This is such a dirty water that I'm using that it kind of is working nicely with the blue. So rather than worrying about making it a blue bathing suit, I'm going to make it this like dirty, just shaded color that's kind of undefined. Make sure the light hits that side of it. Keep it unpainted. Let the white from the paper come through. Let me see if I can get a little bit more paint on there. Just a little bit more. Well, that's blue. So to have, there's the cool colors we were talking about earlier. Yeah, that works nice. Let me get some of that blue to her, the shadows in her hair. Maybe that'll, I know it seems weird to add blue there, but if I mix it in, it just might work. Just some little areas here and there. Yeah, I like the way that's working out. Just a little bit there. A little bit of the blue maybe reflecting off the top of her hair. And a little bit of blue on her hip. Maybe a little bit over here on the side of her face. It seems counterintuitive to put blue, but it does help a lot with trying to create the illusion of light and dark. Get some more red in there. keep that light shining on her. Spread it around. A little bit more red, I think. This like this wine red. It's a little bit too red. I'm going to use a little bit of it to accentuate some of this area over here and some down here. So it's kind of a play between warm and cool. Try to lift some of it. Get that bright spot back on her cheek that I just pretty much ruined. Gotta fix our mistake. Okay, let that dry. I messed up right there. I'm gonna have to fix that. But I can't fix it until it dries. So let it stay like that. Alright, so while we're waiting for that to dry, let's go ahead and brush in some of the beach, some of the sky. So she has behind her a pretty easy to paint sky, I would think. I would say. I'm going to take it down to the horizon, put water on the paper all the way, everywhere on her, around her head. Yep, even there, even there. Get it all wet. Alright, now let's just take some of these blues. Create a nice Daytona sky. Spread it out. The sky gets lighter as it gets closer to the horizon. Whoa, that's a little bit too much dark. Oh, maybe there's some clouds in the sky. Maybe there's some grayness to this day. It's not what I wanted, but looks like the paint has a few thoughts of its own. Alright. Just get that blue to come down here. I want that blue to contrast with her skin tone. One of the things I like at the beach is when I see children flying kites. I've done a couple of paintings of children flying kites. Something about it. Something about the way a child looks flying a kite. Maybe I'll do a painting here like that. And let me just spread it out. It's kind of an uneventful sky, just no storm in the distance, just some blue sky. There. I'm going to have to fix her face. I think I overworked her, to be honest with you. So that's going to take a little bit of doing. All right, let me get some of this darker color for the ocean. And this is where you start to really see that light on her face, when you have that contrasting background. Keep that white on her face, just a hint. And her shoulder also, you see, where I didn't paint it. I kept it white. There we go. Now some of these foreground in the sea, you're going to have, of course, some waves. So we don't want to forget that part. You could always go back and fix some of that with a little bit of gouache. I hope I don't need to fix her face with gouache. I might, though. There's the ocean behind her. At this point, I'm just using dirty water to create the effect of the sand and where the sand and the sea kind of meet, if that makes sense. The sun hits the sand and has a life of its own. So there's this sand. All right, now, oh boy, I am not happy with the way she looks. Jeez, I messed up so bad. It was looking good earlier. So what do I do now? This is hopefully a good thing for all of us to learn. All right, let me just take a wet brush and just keep pulling up some of this stuff that I put down here that doesn't need to be there. So much of this was all right before, and then I messed it up. Just keep pulling it up. That's the one thing beautiful about watercolor, is you can possibly pick it up if it's not too dark. I don't know, too thick. So I'm basically trying to use the water to pull up the color, to bring it, the color of the paper back through. The white of the paper. Just kind of pull it up. See, I'm squeegeeing off the brush with my fingers. Yeah, I think it's starting to come back. I think the look we had earlier is starting to come back. I still has that one hair coming through. I think it's working. I think I'm starting to be pleased with the way this water is pulling up some of that color that I really just went overboard on. You know, again, if you're watching to get tips on how to paint, the one thing I hope I'm showing is that I make mistakes all the time. All the time. Let me get some of this up here. It almost looks like she's got a mustache now. Some of this is just too dark. This can be spread out too. See, there are shadows over there. That's the tricky thing. The shadows do exist, but they are not as harsh as they were appearing because of the mistakes I made by putting too much paint down. I was just putting too much. And you know, like if you're using acrylics and oils, you kind of can do too much paint. It's okay, because you're going to go over that anyway. And you can fix anything. With watercolor, you can still fix it, but it's not always going to be easy. Yeah, I get the bottom of her chin a little bit lit. See how it lightens up when I take the wet brush? Hopefully this is helping. There, she looks a lot better now. Yeah, that water picking up trick is working. Let me do it down here too. It's a little bit too dark here, I think. Spread there. I do like the way that white comes through. All right, now dare I try to put the eyelashes in a little bit darker, or am I going to be ruining it? I'm going to try to use a little point for her pupils. I'm basically using one hair of this brush to create a little bit more of an eyelash look for her. I think I'm not going to touch it anymore. I think I'm going to leave it like that. Now what I want to do is some of these flyaway hairs over here are really dark, and they're really just flying away. Some of her hairs. Give her a little bit more depth, the darkness to the shadows of her hair. Hey, it's spring break. Maybe I can call this picture Spring Break. What do you think? Am I going to mess with it if I touch it a little bit more? You know, I'm not happy with that ocean either. Let me go back to that ocean. Let me make it darker. And give it some more interesting things happening in the background. Right now it's kind of plain. There should be more shadows and a bit more depth, I think, to that far horizon. I think it'll make it a more interesting picture if I did that. Again, the contrast between the background and her skin tones and her hair will help make the light that is reflecting off of her look brighter. I know I've already gone an hour into this video, so hopefully I know some of you probably just scrub through it. I don't blame you. But for those of you who like to watch the whole thing, I understand that too, because I've done that. I've watched a lot of artists paint. That's the one thing I always say about Bob Ross, is he was able to get his paintings done in 28 minutes because, you know, in his day there was no YouTube. He had to like fit everything into a TV schedule. And I'm sure that was a challenge for him. He did it well, though. He's the guy who created the expression, a happy accident, which happens in art all the time. It probably happens on this painting right here. There's a few happy accidents here. Happy mistakes. Okay, now I'm going to try to use, I had a blue-green in here somewhere. I think it was this color here. Some of the water, like here in Florida, it's got this beautiful blue-green look to it, so I want to make sure I get some of that in there too. Especially as you get to the shallow part. People use the photographs I see people posting online. Sometimes I know that they're using filters and stuff. So the filters are so amazing, but you don't really need a filter for the water because it's just beautiful by itself. It's beautiful in the morning, it's beautiful in the evening. It's beautiful. Okay, again, I probably overdid it with a color. I think that green is a little bit too overdone. And let me just kind of scrub some of this in here. Some of these darker colors here. Gives us the feeling that there's a little bit more depth to the picture. Won't you come to Florida for a vacation? Do you remember the song? What was it? It was called Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes. They did that song. What do you think of our girl here? Here we go. Okay, there's our girl at the beach. Spring break. Spring break girl at the beach. Now what I don't like about this is the composition could have been better. I could have had her higher up on the painting. Let's say, like, cut it off right there. That might have been better. All right, let me spread out some of this stuff in the background here to make it not so messy looking. This is the other side of the card, of course. But I'm going to try to blend it in with the front a little bit. Just what the heck is that on the other side of the card? That's what people will say. What is that? Well, that's the artist's palette. That's what you can tell them. Or maybe it's the ghost. Maybe it's the ghost of spring break past. I'm going to bring some of that over here. Yeah, I think I like that happening over there. Put a little bit of that color into the sky. Yeah, not bad. Not a bad idea. Just to give it a little more interest. Something a little bit more interesting. Yeah, it's the ghost of spring breaks past. And she does have a definitely an illustration look to her, which is okay. I guess. Let's try to spray it a little bit and see what happens. A little bit of spray on there. might make it interesting. Like maybe there's a wave that just crashed behind her and brought some suds near her. All right, that's enough of that. I'm gonna let it dry, and then I'll do the ending, which is the beginning. Hopefully you like this video. I'm gonna call it Spring Break. Spring Break, girl. What do you think? You like? You like it? All right. See you later.